Welcome to Dragon Back. How's it going? I am Greg Tito. I am joined by
Shelly Mazanoble.
And we have a return guest.
Yes.
From foggy London, Ontario.
Oh.
Robert Wardhaugh.
Hey,
how are
Robert.
you?
How are you guys doing?
You are calling in and we get to see you in. Is this where you play your 36-year-long campaign?
Yeah, I'm at a bit of a different angle, but this is the seat where I do all my DMing from.
Wow. So you very seldom are not in that seat, probably.
That is actually very true.
So we spoke to Robert. We figured out a year and a half ago, May 2017, about your then 34-year-long D&D campaign. But why don't you give everybody a quick recap as to what it was like getting started with this in 1982?
Well, yeah, it's a heck of a long time ago now, but yeah, the game started the same way I think that most of these campaigns start. Young high school students, or actually junior high students, in a very, very small town in a province called Saskatchewan in Canada's west, and with about one player and then 3 players and then 4 players. That's where the campaign started in 1982, not long after the whole game was invented, really.
And you were the dungeon master of that campaign.
I have only ever been the dungeon master. I think.
Wow.
I think perhaps I've played twice in like maybe a tournament once, and maybe dropping into somebody's place. So I have very little perspective or experience of what it's like being a player, to be honest.
Wow. All right. Well, that's.
But you have 36 years of experience being a dungeon master.
Yeah, 36 years. And I suppose the most, I mean, I know a lot of people, when they hear that, they often say, oh, 36 years, I've been playing for 40 years or things like that. But the unique thing about this game isn't that it's been going since 1982. It's been going nonstop since 1982. And by that, I mean that there has never been a time in all those years for more than, I'm going to say 3 weeks is probably the longest that we've ever gone in 36 years without a session. So you're averaging 2 to 3 sessions a week consistently.
A week? But you play multiple times a week?
Yeah, probably on average it would probably be 2 times for sure, and it maybe 2.5 times over the 36 years. So that's probably the biggest thing. And so you figure out the number of hours of game time that you put in over a 36-year period, and also the depth of complexity that you can build into the same game, the same campaign that you've been doing over 36 years.
And then it's been also the unique part is that it has been the same story over those 36 years, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in game time, I think we've passed through, I'm just having a look at my calendar up here. It's the year 360. We probably started in 200 BF. So probably about 500 to 600 years of game time has passed. And of course, all that history has been built up. So we have players who have been playing from the beginning who are now maybe on their 18th generation of family line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not the same characters, but it's continuous descendants.
Absolutely. And so people often ask about that. And so for sure, it's definitely not the same characters. I mean, the way I did it was I don't let people start again. So if you die, you're dead and you're gone. So death is the end. There's no hitting a reset button. But the way that you keep on playing is you build up a family line. And so you build up your family tree, you keep track of that family tree, and then those are the characters that you drop on.
So do you ever have characters that die of natural causes? Because 500 years is a long time.
Absolutely. So the other thing is that once characters hit a certain level or they hit a certain age, they often want to retire or they want to start a new character. And so they're allowed to do that. So rather than having every character have to adventure until he basically dies or she, they're able to actually retire those characters, still play them on rare occasions, and and start a new character. But I'm a big believer in only allowing people to have one character, one personality to focus on. I don't like people having multiple personalities in the game.
Right. So having like a main one with a bunch of henchmen, for example, you kind of shy away from that.
I do. Yeah, the whole henchman thing I have never ever got into, and I don't use. I mean, if you have NPCs and that kind of thing, but the idea of building up henchmen to drag around with you, I suppose it didn't really ever make sense to me, so I never really fell for it.
So, also just to recap for everybody, what's the kind of style of your game, or what's the story that's being told to hold, these players for this long amount of time?
Yeah, and I suppose in a lot of ways it's a typical story. I mean, there's a great evil coming. There is a great shadow coming, and the interesting thing is they don't know the definite identity of the enemy, so they call him the Arriver. And so there is this enemy coming. He's in the process of arriving. He's he's gathering his forces in the north. And so the orcs, the goblins, the hobgoblins, all of the humanoid races are beginning to gather, getting ready for the arrival of this great evil that will trump every other evil that has ever come along. And so they're basically trying to thwart the progress and find a way ultimately to defeat the Arriver.
And that's been from the beginning?
No, that's true. They didn't know about this force, and so they were fighting various aspects of the larger plan as the years went on. And it was only, I'm going to say, probably in maybe 1991, 1992, that they learned about the Arriver and the big evil that was coming.
Wow.
That is so cool. So how many people, you said that some of these players are original players from the very beginning?
That's right. Yeah.
How many players are in the group?
There's probably maybe 60 active players right now that are playing. And of course, that would be over the course of various parts of Canada, some in Britain. So they're scattered around now, but that doesn't mean that, obviously they would never, ever all come together and play.
Mm-hmm.
But so at any session, I'm probably averaging anywhere from, let's say, 6 to 9 players at the table. Then maybe I have 1 or 2 coming in by camera online. But actively involved with active players in the campaign, you're probably talking about 60 playing right now.
Wow.
How does that work for them?
Well, okay, so the party would be out adventuring, and if they're not there, that means that I always know the last date that they played upon, and so when they are able to play, I catch them up in time. And I put a lot of value on their time off and what they do for training days. So aside from getting experience points and building your character that way, even when you're not playing, you're able to use the time that's passing in the game to develop skills. And so, obviously the best way to get experience and rise is obviously to play, and it will always be like that. But I do want to have something else for those people who don't play very often, so that if they haven't played in like 2 actual years, they're able to catch themselves up and have a bunch of skills at the same time.
That's cool.
But how do they get to play? Like, do they have to sign up in advance? Like, how do you, if you're like part of this group and you want...
Right. So people fly in, right? So I would have a group of people that are active in the local area. I got people that are in Toronto, so that's about 2 hours from me. So people are driving in all the time, and then I have people flying in. We're having our big Halloween party this weekend, so I'll have one guy's flying in from Britain. People are flying in from the west of Canada, and so when people come in, we kind of binge play. That's why it's harder to know how many sessions I play total, because when somebody's bought a ticket and they're coming in to play, I'm basically going to be playing with them all day, all night for as much as they want to play. So we end up binge playing whenever people fly in, and so often, like last weekend, we played 4 times, 4 sessions over the course of the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
This is nuts. They actually fly in. So as a dungeon master for a campaign that has run for 36 years, does the prep is it easier? Is it less now? Or does it become more because you have more things to manage and you have 36 years worth of story to keep track of?
And 60 active players.
And 60 active players.
Yeah. Well, obviously, technology makes a big difference here. And every time we have a session, somebody will record a first-hand diary account that they will end up sending out to the entire group. So all the players know, they see the story, they can see what's happening, and then all of those reports get put onto our website, and then they're all kept there. And then that, of course, provides a critical history, because so much is happening and so many sessions are happening that for me to be able to keep track of what this particular dungeon looked like, or what they met, and have they ever been here, and who have they met. So the party reports form a critical history that I can go back to whenever they go back to an area. And it also keeps everybody plugged in to the storyline, to what's happening. And so that's an important way that we keep everybody kind of connected. But I mean, coming in and playing at the table at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. How can you give an example of like what is happening in like a session? Say what you're planning. Well, maybe you don't want to give what you're planning for your Halloween party, but like the most recent session you had, like what's the kind of plot that they're dealing with?
Right, and I didn't really answer Shelley's question. So the question was, how much prep do I do? And the actual answer to that is none.
Okay.
And that sounds weird, but after playing for so long, and by about 1985, I mean, the whole rule system kind of is developing as a homebrew rule system, and I had basically done all of the modules, right? All of the D&D modules that were out. I had used those for my first 3 years, but by about 1985, when I was starting my undergrad at university, I basically just realized that I was just going to go off on my own. And so you're basically reacting, and it also, by not having a set adventure that they have to do all the time, it basically allows them to do whatever they want to do. So my goal is to create a campaign. So for example, when I will be playing Wednesday evening. So on the session coming up this Wednesday evening, I have no idea what's going to happen because I don't know where they're going to go and I don't know what they're going to do. And so I just adapt and I just react. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of cool because I've created obviously this whole world with all of this detail and depth in it. And so often when they're going places, it's as if I'm going to different portions of my head and seeing what they're seeing for the first time at the same time. Now, obviously, it takes a certain skill to be able to react and adapt and keep it interesting and all of those things. And I suppose I've developed those skills over 3 decades. But in answer to your question, I find that there's not a lot of point in me doing a lot of prep because I could prep everything up and then they could say, hey, let's go do something else. And it's like, damn it. So, yeah. Wow. And the question as far as this weekend, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to want to do. So I will react and adapt because I love that freedom of allowing them to go where they want to go. Yeah,
well, you've created this world where it's the perfect simulationist feeling for a player, where like you have, kudos to you for having a lot of this in your head. It feels like of what the detail of the tapestry of the world is, and you can just have them do whatever they want, and you're pretty sure that you'd be able to adapt to it because it's something that's already you just be riffing off the ideas that you've already kind of cemented in your head.
And because I use an alternate version of our own historical timeline in a fantasy setting, right? So it's our Earth, but in a fantasy setting, and because I'm a history professor, and with that historical knowledge, it allows me to have probably a bit more perhaps background, so that if they go into a Celtic area or a Norse area, or a First Nations area, I'm able to provide that type of cultural detail just on my historical knowledge.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you also have like inspirations of areas that were taken from Lord of the Rings and from other like Wind in the Willows or something like that? Is that correct too?
Well, it's a lot of it is the whole continent, and I call it a continent. The continent of Middle-earth exists off the coast. So the Earth, they don't know the exact size of the Earth. They don't know exactly if there's even more lands out there, but they have discovered that Middle-earth is part of the Earth, and it's an entire continent. But in addition to that, I use a lot of the Wizards of the Coast, for example, the Drow, right? Places like Menzoberranzan, the Drow, the Sea Elves. So a lot of the terrains that I first began playing with from the Wizards of the Coast, what was NTSR, I have built into the world.
I see.
And so they exist as well. And so it allows me to turn to that when I need all of that, and you're not having to invent everything every time.
Have they been to the continent of Middle-earth?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and so it's Middle-earth 400 years after the destruction of the ring. And
Fourth Age.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so basically, the premise here is that the 9 ring wraiths have now been brought back by the Arriver. So this enemy coming is so powerful, even more powerful than Sauron was. And so he has brought back the 9 ring wraiths. Each one of them is now as powerful as Sauron. And so the party has to destroy all 9 ring wraiths, get the Nazgul daggers, and that's one of the things that they have to do in all of these steps to end up ultimately facing the Arriver.
That's awesome. So yeah, answer my question then. What happened in the last session that you played, just to give us an example of what the kind of plot is going on?
Well, the last sessions were actually twitched. So that was the first time that I've done Twitch. I
believe the past tense is twatched. No,
No.
like I just twatched that.
No, I don't think we can say that.
It's not true. Oh, okay.
No.
I'm getting disapproving shaking of heads.
Yeah, exactly. So the younger dudes in the group insisted that we go with these tech things and do the whole Twitch thing. And so we did that, and so for that I did a bit more prep, just because I knew that I'm going to be getting filmed and everything like that. But it was basically a vampire adventure. So it was back to the old traditional classic motif of the vampires, finding out vampires, discovering if they were actually vampires, and then trying to wipe out vampirism. So that was what we were doing last week. Mm-hmm.
So what is the age range of the players in your group?
They don't all have white beards like me, but they so it would vary. Just because of the whole friendship concept and the fact that the game always began as a group of friends, and then I gathered more and more friends as I went through life. So there's a lot of them that would be, they're probably aging from, I'm going to say 60 at the oldest, and I'm going to say the youngest players would now be maybe. Well, my daughter's playing, so she's 17.
Oh, cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. So we have a generational shift going on where our kids are now playing, and of course they have to be old enough because it's definitely adult content. So the age range would certainly go from maybe about 17 to 60.
Oh, that's amazing.
When did your daughter start playing?
I actually started her early because it was a cool thing for the two of us to do. And if you're trying to figure out something to do with your kid, and I have this entire world that you can come play in. So she probably first set up a character when she was 7. I didn't allow her to play with any of the adults. And so she was a fairy. And so she was able to go off and pick her flowers and pick her herbs and try to save animals in the forest. And so she began that. Now she's still playing the same character. So she's a heck of a lot more powerful now. And she was actually one of the 6 people who was playing in the Twitch sessions on the weekend.
Oh, cool.
And she's very powerful now.
She's still playing a fairy, but like a leveled up fairy?
Yes, absolutely.
The same character.
That's cool.
The same character, yeah, that's right.
Oh my goodness. Right. So yeah. I'm wondering if there's like a Guinness book world record for like the longest consecutive D&D game.
Yeah, I'm
pretty sure this is the record.
I'm looking for any kind of contenders, but I don't think there are any. The longest thing I ever ran was like 2.5 years, maybe, and it probably had longer, breaks than yours did, with longer than 3 weeks of not playing in that time span.
Oh yeah, I'm just thinking about like even here in our building, I have started and stopped so many D&D games because work or. Yeah, whatever.
Things shift or change.
Things change, and we're right here, and for lunch we could just be playing, and we can't keep a game going for that long.
But you don't even do 36 days.
I couldn't even do 36 days.
Like 1 month of continuous.
What level are your characters?
Well, that's the other thing, and so I get this question a lot on the Instagram and things like that. People, my homebrew rule system over time has evolved to the point that you're really talking, my level system is about double what for example, 5th edition D&D rule system would be. So when I say level 25, for you guys, you're probably talking about level 13. And so as far as the highest level character ever, I think you're probably talking maybe 42nd level, which would be about maybe 22nd level in D&D terms, in D&D rules. and he probably played that character over the course of maybe 15 actual years.
Wow.
Oh my God. 15 years.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, you can imagine how emotional people get when I finally kill them.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Oh yeah. So I've had big, burly, macho, grown men with tears running down their face and of course it just all makes me very happy.
I was just gonna ask, how do you feel about that?
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well,
Well, 'cause
Don't you get attached too to these characters?
sometimes, but usually they've survived for so damn long. It's like, just die already, would you? Just hurry up and die. But
And then you get their scions to come up. Like, I love that it's necessarily
Yes.
a goodbye to that player or even
Avenge
that character because,
their
you know,
death.
yeah, exactly. It's similar to Betrayal Legacy in a way too.
It is. I was thinking of that.
Yeah.
You play the
The
different,
different generations. But I noticed that you have allowed your daughter to continue with the same character for
Yeah,
that long.
when are you going to kill her character?
oh, soon.
Not what I expected.
No.
Yeah, it was actually interesting because when she first started, she was a ranger air elementalist, and so she loves animals and she loves cats, and so I can remember at one time when she came across this orc who just conveniently was wearing the skulls of baby cougars around its neck.
Oh boy.
You know, just to get her a little going. But she went out on that adventure, and her own pet panther died.
Aww.
And I can remember watching, going, "Oh no! I mean, I can't break my rules of impartiality. I'm not going to save this cat." And so, thank God she rolled a God call, and thank God she got the call, and thank God they saved that panther. Otherwise, I was going to have a very upset little 7-year-old girl.
Oh yeah.
What's a god call?
Oh, well, that's okay. So in my campaign, it's very difficult to be raised from the dead, and so basically, just because I want death to mean something, and I want death to be the end. So when you die, you basically got 2 hours to get a raised dead. There's no such thing as a resurrection. There's only raised dead. There's no reincarnation. Get a raised dead, 2 hours, and if you don't get it, that's it. You're done. And so a God call basically means grab the 30-sided dice, roll a 1, 2, or 3 on the 30-sided dice, and pray that your God's gonna step in and save you.
And that would one of the things that God call could do is erase dead.
They could come in and basically get your heart going again. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, was that be after the 2 hours, or is that before? You know.
That's before. That's if the 2 hours are up and there's no raised dead coming and you're gonna die and this is it. You're done. Character's gonna be gone forever. No chance of ever coming back. Then you can grab your 30-sided dice and maybe your God will save you.
I like that.
I know, it's kind of cool. Cool rule.
Hopefully, but, you know.
What other kinds of rules like that do you have in your campaign?
Yeah, maybe you could talk a little bit more about how you You took OD&D and then have kind of built on it from there. Is that correct?
Yeah. Basically, I just began evolving, and whenever so there's all kinds of second, third, fourth, fifth edition rules that are built in. The ones that I like and the ones that I don't like, I just don't use. But also over the years, the biggest thing about my rule system is how fast and fluid it is. And if you have a look at the Twitch sessions, that's what you're going to see. When I'm watching other groups play, that's probably one of the biggest differences is that when I'm sitting there, it's like, okay, Greg, and I would call you by your character name, and I'd say, what do you want to do? And then if you take too long, I'm going to go going, okay, gone. Kelly, what do you want to do? And so I'm going around to the table fast. And so I want everything to be fluid. I want decisions to be made fast. I want the action to be there. I want the excitement level to be high, and everything to be fast and fluid. I don't want to have to stop and, look at my Dungeon Master screen or open a book. Ideally, everything's going fast to try to maximize excitement and also entertainment. So any rules that slowed me down, I would find ways to streamline them so that everything can move fast. But one of the other things I would say, like an example of an innovation that I've built in would be the whole defensive round. So when people swing, right? So if you're going to attack something, it's okay. Well, you're the one who's calling out what you're going to do. You're the one rolling the dice. But I find that I've built it in so the defender also gets to indicate what he or she's going to do. So the block, the parry, the dodge, all of these things are built in. So the attacker's rolling a dice, but the defender's also he's rolling a dice at the same time. And so you've almost opened up the round for an entire other half, and you built in a whole defensive thing. That's often built in to the one roll, but this way you separate it out. And so things like that would be an example.
That sounds like it would slow down combat, though. How does that speed it up?
Well, I'm just not going to allow you much time. If Shelley's going to pick up that mug and she wants to hit you on the side of the head with
I do so badly.
You can.
That's
Roll the die.
Okay? So I would say, Shelley, what do you want to do? She says, I'm going to pick up my mug and I'm going to hit Craig in the head,
Yes.
or Greg, and I'm going to say, okay, do you want to do double damage? Or are you trying to stun him? And she's going to tell
Double
me
damage.
exactly. And so she would roll, but then I would quickly turn to you and I'd say, what are you going to do? And so
I'm going to duck.
You could dodge, right? And so at the same time that she's rolling her dice, you would roll your dice.
And then you just,
and then you'd see what, and then we would see whether you actually ducked or whether she actually hit you.
well, I guess if you are doing that insistence, or you're like, all right, move on, that wouldn't slow it down. But I can imagine if there was a less insistent dungeon master where that could get a little bit more bogged down, because you're basically asking for 2 decisions each roll.
Yeah, if it's one thing I'm not, it's less insistent. Yeah.
More insistent is better, which is the opposite of what I think of as Canadian. So thank you for bucking all of the stereotypes.
Yeah, exactly.
D&D has turned him.
He hasn't said sorry once.
No sorry's coming here. No sorry, I killed your character. That's not happening.
Yep. Well, I dig all this. So it's been a year and a half since we talked. What do you think is, other than showing up on Twitch? What are some changes? What's been happening to this campaign that you think would be of interest to Dungeon Masters?
Sure. Okay. So it's been in the last year and a half that they have actually discovered that Middle Earth is not another world. It's not another dimension. It's not another plane, and they can actually sail there physically. So it is a continent on Earth. So that's been one example. A second example would be that we finished a big campaign where I had the storm giants and the cloud giants. They had not seen any storm giants or cloud giants, and when they went back through the party history, they actually realized that other than rumor and myth, they had never actually come across cloud giants or storm giants. And so they basically realized that the evil giants had forced the good giants out of the world and had prevented them from coming back to this plane. And so they did a whole campaign to find the gate, to open the gate, and to allow the cloud and storm giants to come back, which will help them in their larger struggle against the Arriver, because the giant army is one of the most powerful armies out there. And so the storm giants and the cloud giants coming back will cause dissension within the giant family. So that would be an example.
That's cool.
They did a whole campaign against Yanagu, the demon lord Yanagu. So the demon lord had been, and the cool thing, because the campaign's been going on for so long, they banished Yanagu. And when a demon gets banished in my world, they're gone for 100 years. They can't return to the world for 100 years. But the cool thing when you have a campaign that's going on this long, is that they banished Yanagu in real time. They banished Yanagu in the year 1990. And so Yanagu came back and was on the earth causing all kinds of trouble. And so this summer, they actually managed to do a whole campaign against the Gnolls in the Gnoll Kingdom, and they actually managed to banish Yanagu. So
Again.
that would be an example. A third example would be the Drow. The Dark Elves have come up from Enzo Baranzan. They've come up from the Underdark, and they have fulfilled their prophecy. They have come back onto the surface, and they've set up their first surface realm. And so that's very, very scary, knowing that the Dark Elves are now back up on the surface, and they're beginning to live on the surface. So that's all part of the Arriver's plan. So those would be 3 examples of large campaigns that the party's done in the last year and a half.
And you mean by campaign, you mean like just like kind of a story that kind of has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then you kind of move on to another chapter after that?
Yeah, that was a campaign that they had to do, and they had to get it done, and it took, like multiple sessions in order to do it, but they did actually accomplish it.
Well, and it also sounds like you're using, at least some of the lore material that was in adventures published for 5th edition over the last 5 years. Were you someone inspired by that?
Oh yeah, well I use those directly. That was the whole idea of the campaign in the first place. Rather than starting from scratch and having to reinvent everything from scratch, and you're going to end up basing it on things anyway. I realized, why not use history? Why not use other worlds such as Tolkien's world, Conan's world exists. Why not use those? Because there's so much depth and details on cities. So rather than just not be able to use it, why not use it? So the Forgotten Realms and the World of Greyhawk and all those things are all over my campaign.
I like that. It's like a kind of like a best of.
Exactly. It's all in there, which was there to allow people to. I mean, if Greg, you came in and said, I really want to play a Dragonborn paladin, right? If you wanted to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's doable, right? I mean, I can adapt to adjust to people's creativity because there's an entire world out there. Who knows what's out there, right? Who knows what hasn't been discovered out there yet? Who knows what lands haven't been discovered yet? And of course, and that's what allows everything to stay fresh and to keep on going. Because of course, the big issue in most campaigns is you go along, characters get too powerful, and then you almost have to stop because they're kind of reaching God status. But so I developed the rules so that you can be high level, and there's no such thing as reaching God status, first of all, because I don't think it makes sense from a religious standpoint. And of course, I do religion very differently also, right? I don't treat it as magic. I treat it as actual religion. So there is no doing that. But people also often ask, well, what level is your campaign? Because, I mean, they're so used to when you adventure, what you're going to encounter has to be made to hit a certain level. And if you don't have that, there's going to be a great imbalance. And I just answered, there is no level in my campaign. I mean, if you came in as a new character, you could head out and you could be going up with other characters who are like 25th level. And in a lot of rule systems, that first level would basically be dead for sure. And there isn't anything that they'd be able to offer. But in our rule system, that first level could end up being the hero, right? Because you can always do a kill shot, or you could contribute in all kinds of ways. So I've kind of got around the issue that everything you do has to be built towards a certain level.
So that's interesting. How if a first level character swings at a 25th level monster, for example, are you just saying that there's a chance that it'll hit? It's less than it'll be if it was a 25th level hero fighting against it, but there's always a possibility they could.
Yeah. See, when you're swinging to hit what you were trying to hit, the level wouldn't matter. I mean, his evasion level would, his armor class would, his various skills would. But so, I mean, that first level swinging would have the same chance of hitting anything else depending on how fast you are, but it would just all depend what that 25th level would do for his defensive round. So I've kind of got away from this idea that where you're kind of trapped into the fact that low levels are basically useless, and they would have no chance of saving against certain things, and certain attacks would just basically wipe them out.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in my rule system.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's awesome. That's like makes it a much easier way to integrate people from new, and then also the idea that like, oh, death is permanent, so that once you get to a certain level, the risk is still always going to be there. That a bad roll will,
absolutely.
Yeah, you make a wrong choice, or even not even just chance can always strike you down.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably more dangerous for the high levels because the enemy's going to be targeting them because they're the threat.
Yeah.
And so my high level players are often whining and complaining because they feel like they're constantly under fire and under threat. And it's like, well, yeah, because if the enemy doesn't take you out, you're going to kill them. So of course.
Well, that's why they keep recruiting young people,
Right,
to join your campaign. That must make sense.
That's right. That's right.
So Greg mentioned your campaign is similar to Betrayal Legacy, which is our board game coming out later this year.
Oh, cool.
So with a legacy game, for people who aren't familiar with it, is the game changes and evolves permanently depending on your actions in the game, the player's actions. So
Can you explain that? What does that mean?
So it's like this is you play through the game, and there's things that will happen, like you'll create new rules, and there will actually be like a sticker in the game that you discover and then place in the rule book. Like maybe you're replacing a rule, or you're inventing a new rule, or it might ask you to like actually tear up a card or name a card, or like in the Risk Legacy, there's a legacy version of Risk, and you can actually like permanently name parts of the board.
Put down cities and
put down cities, and like it's a little bit weird for at first when you think like, wait, I have to tear up my cards, like, but people do it, and it's awesome.
Wow.
But part of what with the Betrayal Legacy game is that you're playing generations of families. You play the same family, but different members of that family throughout 1666 all the way up to 2004. And part of what happens in that game is you can discover items, and then you can choose to heirloom them for your family. And then in future games, if those come up, they come back to you, you get an extra bonus if you use it. Do you have things like that in your game with like other things that can be passed on to family members that have come up again?
Oh, yeah. See, and now I can hear my players' voices.
Oh.
And they're basically whining, and they're using the word silver spoon because they always complain about these people who have long family lines.
Yeah.
And of course, they have treasuries built up. And so in comes that first level character from a long family line, and they've got dragon armor, and they've got a beautiful dragon shield, and they got a high plus weapon. And
That's
so
cool.
and so there's so absolutely you want to do that. So that word legacy items that gets used in my campaign all the time to complain about families who have silver spoons who of course keep coming back. So that definitely happens. Of course, at other times, all the items will be destroyed.
Right.
I mean, I had one player who a year ago had all of his legacy items on him, and he got disintegrated, and they're all gone. And I don't think he's recovered yet. So I mean,
Wow.
He's not okay.
That's
no,
not.
he's not
That's
okay.
rough.
And so those, because he's been building those items
Yeah.
literally for like 30 years, right? And then they're gone. And of course, sorry, goodbye.
There it is. There's the sorry.
Yep. Oh, we got one.
There's the sorry.
That was a total sorry, not sorry.
Sarcastic sorry. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sorry,
Oh,
not
sorry.
Yeah. So that kind of thing happens. And also, like I even have characters who, when they're spending their training time, they will spend it training their young kid coming up, so that when that character comes up, they already have some training, right?
What's training time?
Oh, like what I call focus days. So that's the time. So like if you hadn't played, let's say in like 6 actual months.
You did mention that.
Yeah, it could be that a year and a half has passed in the game, and so you get to play with me that year and a half time to do character development. Where were you? What were you doing? Have you had kids? What's been happening? How have you been funding yourself? But also in your training days, what skills have you been working on? So your character sheet actually gets altered by your training time.
That's a cool way.
Do you have your own template for a character sheet?
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And clearly, with the ship behind you, I don't know if your viewers can see that, but there's lots of miniatures on the shelves behind you. You have it be a very visual campaign.
Yeah, because one of the things, actually, I don't know if you know this, but as a result of the last podcast that I did, CNN contacted me to do a great big story, and so we did a mini. So yeah,
we
that's
make
right.
News happen.
And so we did so they flew in from New York, and they did an entire mini doc on the campaign. And if you see there, you'll see the board and the tables. I mean, because like I've got over 20,000 professionally hand painted figurines. I'm down in my basement now, and if you could see, that stuff behind me, that's just stuff that I want to grab quickly for the table. But I'm changing terrains, and I've got an entire room full of boxes and boxes and boxes of terrain.
That's so great.
It's definitely a visual campaign. And if you watch the Twitch that we did, that's now going up on YouTube, that you'll see the table and you'll see the terrain and you'll see the figs. That plays a massive role.
How did you guys integrate that? Did you have a camera not only on the dice rolling, but on the miniatures themselves? How did that work?
Well, so when I was, because of course I don't really know much about Twitch, and so actually when I was watching you guys Twitch and I was watching UDM, I could see that what most people were doing was basically there'd be a camera on each of the players and one on the DM, and possibly a square screen in the middle. So what we did was, because the figs and the terrain mean so much, what I wanted, so I had two cameras on the players. So you got one camera on three players, one camera on three other players, and then we had separate dice cams that would only come on when people were actually rolling. Because I think that's such an important, I mean, people love dice and they love to roll. And so to actually, that's the action part of a campaign or of a session. So to actually see the dice roll, I thought, because when I'm watching Twitch, it's like, I can't see what they're rolling. I can't see what they're rolling. And so to have the dice boxes and to have that come up, that was cool. But then I had a camera that's behind the figs. So that would give them a first-person shooter view, and then we had another camera up higher that would show the entire table. And so there was a total of about six cameras going to show all of these things happening at the same time.
That's cool. And then was there a player that was switching, or was there somebody else who was kind of switching the cameras as you played?
Well, I had to have, it's definitely, I mean, and that Twitch stuff's a lot of work.
Tell me about it.
And so it was like, so I had to basically have one guy that was basically switching the camera every time. I had to have another guy answering, people's questions and comments, which is weird for me because, of course, I'm not used to being watched.
Right.
So my whole concept is, well, I mean, people aren't supposed to be watching, right? And so so that was a bit weird, and it was weird having people here at the house who have characters who weren't playing, because I'd say, why would you? I mean, come on, play. And so it was a bit weird that way, but so it definitely took a little bit of tech work for sure.
Well, I'm cool. I want to check it out because I do love the integration with miniatures. I know there's a few streams that have done that, but I think it's a open area for experimentation.
Well, have a look. I mean, I think the Twitch sessions are just beginning to go up on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure it's the Game DND. So when it comes to Instagram, when it comes to the website, when it comes to Twitch, it's all the Game DND, and there could be an underscore in there.
Yeah, I think on your Instagram it's an underscore, and it is D letter N D, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And that's the same Twitch handle you got? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So are you going to do it again? The Twitch?
If there's a reason to do it again, I'm trying. Of course, being a bit old school, I'm trying to figure out. Why, yeah. So I mean, like, I guess the big question would be why. It was cool to do. It was neat to do, and it answered, because a lot of people, particularly on Instagram, often say, "Well, can we watch a play? Can I see a session?" And so it was cool to offer that, but. It's a bit weird being on camera the entire time that you're playing. It affects you in ways, right? I mean, like, because I mean, I don't censor anything, right? I mean, when I'm playing the game, bad things can happen. Terrible, dark things can happen. I'm not going to hold them back. And if things are happening, and if that's what I'm seeing in my head, then that's what's going to happen. So it was a bit. So I mean, obviously, when you're on Twitch and you're playing that way, you're aware that you're being watched. You're aware what you're saying, and of course, being a professor, I live in a very politically correct world, and so those thoughts were in my head, and I don't really want them to be in my head when I'm playing. And one question that I would have is, are the players actually acting completely like they would act if there were no cameras?
Right. That's what I was going to ask. If you found like that you were censoring yourself, or if the players felt awkward. I mean, it is awkward. You're in front of a camera all of a sudden after 36 years.
Yeah, and you don't know who's watching. So I would say, inevitably, the players are going to alter their behavior. Inevitably. I mean, I can feel myself.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I like to talk. I like to give detail, but I'm giving more detail because I know that I'm also performing. And I'm also trying to give other people that don't have the background a little bit more background, which is good, and that doesn't hurt. But at the end of the day, you want everyone to sit and to play and to be happy and to be comfortable and to be in that safe space where they can play and they can role play. I mean, because we actually cast spells. Like, when a player's casting a spell, you don't just say, I'm casting a spell and cross it off. You actually, there's hand motions and there's words that you actually cast in our game.
Oh,
wow.
Right. And so it can be a bit weird for people to all of a sudden start, and you'll see that on the Twitch also. You'll actually see people casting spells. And so, but I mean, they seem fine. But you have to be selective because of all my 60 players, there's only going to be a certain number of them that would ever want to be filmed and want to be on Twitch. Right?
Yeah, I almost wonder if there's like a offshoot campaign that you could do that, like, okay, well, this particular one with these particular 6 players that have signed on to be doing it, like they're going to go to the continent of Middle Earth or something like that, or have like I mean, something that you might be able to take from us is that we have these finite stories and arcs that we'll have like 10 to 12 episodes, and that's what we're programmed to do. And you might be able to do something similar where you get like a shorter amount of buy-in. It doesn't affect your overall campaign other than whatever the events of that might affect it. But yeah, there's something to be said for that.
You are absolutely right, and that is the way to do it. Find a group of players that don't mind being filmed, and then almost send them off on a small campaign on their own, still within the world, still tied to the story arc, but just off on their own. And that's kind of what I did on Twitch.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I mean, it's going to be a bit revolutionary because I'm going down to GaryCon, and I'm going to be running a table in GaryCon.
Oh, no way.
And so that'll be the first time that I'm actually, just basically bringing in strangers and saying, okay, here's some characters, sit down and play. But that will also be very much built into the world, into the same campaign, but it'll be a small storyline within the campaign. But
Sweet.
You're absolutely right. That would be the way to do Twitch for sure.
Well, sign me up. I want to be in that game.
Okay, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nice.
I was like 50-50 on GaryCon, but I think you might have just sold me on going this year.
Good.
I know Luke Gygax has been trying to sell Shelley on going as well.
What? Nobody's ever talked to me.
Right now, it's in March. It'll be fun.
I'm on the website.
Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Come on. Who doesn't want to go?
Exactly. Sunny Lake Geneva. That's all really exciting. Cool. Well, any other tidbits you want to impart before we sign off and talk to you again when it's 38 years?
Well, hopefully by then, hopefully ask me then if I've killed a lot of the high level characters, and that would be an accomplishment because man, some of them are hard to kill.
It's time for a culling.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
I like that. Well, when you plan out that session, that might be a good one
Yeah, that might
to
be
Twitch.
a good Twitch one.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, wow, what if somebody actually dies on Twitch? I thought, wow, that would
Happens
be
all the time.
real TV happening right there.
Yep.
What if it's the Arriver?
What if it's your daughter's
come on.
character?
What if it's your daughter's character?
No.
Well,
Fairies
then
don't live forever.
Sorry, I'm an impartial DM. What can I do? Sorry.
It's just the dice.
Life lessons, kid.
Exactly.
Life lessons. School of
Fairies
Hard
don't last
Knocks
forever.
here.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, I feel like there's tons more questions people will always want to throw at you about this campaign because it is super fascinating that you've been running this continuous story for so long.
Yeah.
Going on almost 4 decades now. So how can people get in touch with you? I think you mentioned the Instagram and the Twitch already. Is there any other format that you like to prefer to get questions about stuff?
I think Instagram's probably the biggest one. So the _game D&D, that's a good place to go because there you'll see the table, you'll see the campaign, you'll see the players, you'll see all of that stuff. And plus, that's where since that has all began, and so since I talked to you guys a year and a half ago, we are having players come in through that medium, and so and also via the talk that we did last time, players came in. So that would be the main place to go, and then I guess the YouTube channel, we're going to put more and more stuff up there. So those would be the 2 major contact points. We have done a website just to kind of answer questions about the game, and that's also called thegamednd.com. So that's available too if people have all kinds of questions about the rules, the campaign, how to create a character, how does death work, how does religion work, all of those types of things. So I've kind of tried to answer a whole bunch of questions there.
Awesome.
Very nice.
And just to be clear, it's _game D&D.
DND, yeah.
Got it. All right.
You bet.
Well, everyone go check it out if you haven't already. Go watch the videos on the YouTubes as well as the Twitches. And well, happy gaming. I hope you kill all of your high-level characters soon.
Well, thank you so much for your interest.
You got 2 years to do it.
Yeah.
I know.
We'll be checking in.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. One final thing. You mentioned that you had those logs of all of the players that have done it. Is that public or is that only private right now?
We are now putting the party reports, which tell the whole story, and more and more stuff from our actual website is going on to the game dnd.com. So that website is a good place for us to put a lot of that textual stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the website is more the place for photographs and for text, whereas of course Instagram is mainly just for photos.
Got it. Awesome.
That would be the place.
Well, those are a wealth of information, I'm sure. So look into those if you're at all want to peel back the layers of this campaign.
Well, thank you very much.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Happy gaming.
All right. Thank you.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
Inspiration for all.
We should be able to keep a game going
For longer.
for like 3 months. We really should.
We've got like 2 or 3 sessions, and then Nathan gets busy.
Yep.
Or some other of us get busy.
We'll never know.
Yeah.
Drunkie will never get past first level.
And never?
I don't know. I mean, I can't keep her in a game very long.
It's true. She hasn't been able to level up at all.
No.
Daryl leveled up by dying.
Yeah, he did.
That's the way
he leveled all the way up.
To the east side. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us for these 3 hours of fun. It has been very enjoyable. We have a little bit more recording to do, but I think we're going to do it off the lines. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we'll surprise everybody.
Yes. There will be a Dragon Talk episode coming tomorrow, actually, October 23rd.
Bonus?
For a bonus episode for our friends with Art and Arcana, because the book is actually out in stores tomorrow.
That's a good one.
So we'll be releasing one then. We'll be releasing our one with Blue Jay this Thursday, and perhaps this one with Robert next week.
Okay.
We are off recording for the next 2 weeks. So I'll be at TwitchCon. We won't be able to record on the 29th. And there is a little thing called Extra Life going on November 5th here in the office.
On the 5th?
Yeah, that's right. Talia will be running a game
Cool.
on this very table, most
Nice.
likely, during this period, 2 weeks from today. And that'll be awesome, all in support of the Seattle Children's Hospital, or any one of the hospitals in the Children's Miracle Network. D&D has been raising tons of money. Thank you so much for all of the contributions. It's blowing our minds.
What a
I
great
think we're above
community.
120,000 right now.
We
We're
beat
hoping
last year.
we've already beat last year.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to get up above 150 for 2018. So make it happen, people.
It's getting crazy.
It is getting crazy. Go look at dnd.wizards.com/extralife for more information there. My page is up there. Make some donations. I'm not going to be able to beat Chris Lindsay or Mike Merles or Bart Carroll or Shelley
Nathan.
Mazanoble even. But every little bit counts. And there's still tons of stuff that you can do for my game on Clerical Air. So go check that out if you haven't already. Anything else you want to talk about for people here before we sign off?
Go get your Access and Allies and Zombies this Friday.
That's right.
That's coming out.
Whew.
Crazy.
There's going to be zombies all over the place.
Yeah, there are.
And then Betrayal Legacy in a couple weeks, right?
November 9th.
November 9th.
Yes.
You heard it here
We'll
first,
be celebrating
folks.
it at GameholeCon.
Legacy items.
Without you, I hear.
I will most likely not be at GameholeCon. Yeah, I know. Sad. But GaryCon, maybe? That sounds super fun.
Well, apparently you are.
Apparently you are,
You're
too.
on the website.
I know. I got it. We're being advertised already. You guys are fantastic. Stay tuned tonight. I believe there is no Dark and Dicey tonight. So they are on a bit of a hiatus. They will be back soon. But we have a whole slew of programming going on tomorrow, starting at 10 a.m. with the Don't Split the Podcast Network playing The Demon Plague. With the awesome Dungeon Master James Introcaso, who was a freelancer on Waterdeep Dragon Heist. And there's some great players in that as well. So go check it out and watch the D&D Twitch channel all day long, because we'll be going basically from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. with only a few breaks in between. So good stuff there. And I will see you there at 3 o'clock for D&D News.
Yeah.
I'll give you some news.
News you can use with Greg Gnu.
Not news that you abuse.
Don't abuse the news
Yes.
or lose the news.
With Spiro Agnews.
Choose the news.
Choose life. Everybody, thank you for taking off my audio. You're all the best.
Bye.
Goodbye forever.